When the familiar chaos is all you've known, tranquility begins to feel like a danger. Not because it's bad, but because your feelings are still navigating by an old map. We will further explore why the strongest sensations so often lead you astray, and how to finally change that. There is one moment that is hard to explain but easy to recognize. You try something new, something that by all accounts should be good for you. Silence instead of constant tension. Stability instead of familiar turbulence. Relationships without scandals and drama. And instead of relief, a strange discomfort. A feeling that something is wrong, that it is too easy, too boring, too unreal. This is not a weakness of character or a whim. It is the work of your nervous system, which, for years, has accepted noise and chaos as the norm. When the inside rumbled for so long, calmness became foreign. And now, when it arrives, it feels not like a gift, but like an alarm signal. Your feelings are literally telling you to run from where you might feel good. Herein lies the main trap. We are used to trusting our feelings as a compass. If something feels right, then it is. If something feels wrong, then you should leave. But what if this compass was calibrated to the wrong coordinates? What if the loudest and strongest feelings are not the voice of truth, but just an echo of old experiences? We live in an era where self-trust is presented as the main virtue. Listen to your heart. Trust your intuition. Your feelings don't lie. These phrases have become something like an axiom. And there is a grain of truth in this. But there is also a blind spot that almost no one talks about out loud. Feelings reflect not what is right, but what you are used to. These are different things, and the confusion between them costs people a lot. Think about how many times you walked away from something good because it felt not like you. How many times did you return to what was destroying you simply because it felt familiar? This is not coincidence or chance. This is a system, and it works so precisely because you don't notice it. You take its conclusions for your own desires. Today's video is about this. First, we'll analyze why the most intense experiences so often point in the wrong direction, and how the habit of chaos turns into a filter through which you see all your experience. Then we'll move on to practice. I'll show you a specific way to check a feeling before blindly following it. But there is one more layer that is important to name right away. The problem is not that you feel wrong. The problem is that no one explained to you how calibration works. We are taught to trust ourselves, but we are not taught to notice when yourself needs to be reset first. This knowledge changes not only how you make decisions, it changes how you read your own experience at all. And for now, one question worth starting with. Was there something you turned down because it felt too calm or too easy, and then realized it was exactly what you needed? Write about it in the comments. Such stories help us choose topics that are truly important for the next episodes. The intensity of experience and its authenticity are not the same. This is perhaps the most costly confusion in the minds of most people. We automatically assume the stronger the feeling, the more reliable its signal. But the brain is arranged differently. It does not assess what is good for you in the long term. It compares incoming experiences with what has already been recorded as normal. And if the norm has been tension, urgency, unpredictability for years, then these states will feel alive, real, yours. Everything that does not match them will seem empty, unreal, or anxious. This is not a metaphor or an exaggeration. This is a specific mechanism. When a person exists for a long time in conditions of chaos, frequent conflicts at home, constant urgency at work, relationships with a high emotional amplitude, their psyche adapts. It stops perceiving this as stress. It begins to consider it background. And as soon as the background changes to something stable and predictable, the psyche does not calm down. It starts searching for a danger signal, because silence in its coordinate system means one thing: something has gone wrong. Here's how it looks from within. A person finally arrives at a place where there is no pressure, a new job without a toxic boss, relationships without door slamming, a morning without an anxious to-do list. And the first reaction is not finally. The first reaction is anxiety. Thoughts like, this won't last long. Maybe I'm missing something. I think I'm bored here. Shoulders do not relax. The gaze continues to scan the space in search of a threat that is not there. This is not weakness or ingratitude. This is calibration that has stuck on old data. A typical mistake here is to take this anxiety as reliable information. A person feels discomfort in a good place and concludes, then this place is not for me. They feel boredom in stable relationships and decide, then there's no chemistry. They feel a strange emptiness after a productive yet calm day and reach back for the usual overload because at least there is charge there. Each time, the choice is made not in favor of what is useful, but in favor of what is familiar. And each time, this decision feels like intuition. Here it is important to distinguish between two poles of one scale. On one side is what is familiar, recognizable by feeling, quickly identifiable, requiring no adaptation. On the other is what is useful, what truly meets your needs but may not align with what you are used to. These two poles are often confused because the familiar disguises itself as correct. It feels confident, clear, unwavering, and this confidence is mistakenly read as a signal of truth. In sports, there is a well-known phenomenon. An athlete who has trained for years with the wrong technique begins to correct their movement, and the correct technique at first feels uncomfortable, unnatural, not theirs. The body resists, not because the new movement is worse, but because it is unfamiliar to muscle memory. The psyche operates on the same principle. What is right does not always feel right, especially when you have been training in a different way for so long. The turnaround does not start with ceasing to feel. It begins with ceasing to consider the intensity of feeling as proof of its accuracy. A strong feeling tells you, this is familiar, or this is unfamiliar. It does not tell you, this is good, or this is bad. The difference between these two signals is fundamental, and once you begin to notice it, you stop automatically avoiding the good just because it is unfamiliar. A useful check that you can apply in the moment is the model intensity, authenticity. When a strong reaction arises to something new, ask yourself not, what do I feel, but where do I know this from? The intensity of feeling speaks to how deeply it is rooted in past experience, not about how accurately it describes the present situation. The louder the runaway signal, the more important it is to stop and check. Is this real information about what is happening now? Or is it an echo of something that happened earlier? And here's what's interesting. People who have gone through conscious recalibration often say the same thing. Not that chaos has become unpleasant to them, but that good things have stopped seeming suspicious. This is a subtle difference, but it is precisely this difference that changes the decisions you make, the people you are drawn to, and the situations you remain in. Right now, recall a situation you recently wanted to escape, not because there was anything objectively bad about it, but simply because it was uncomfortable. Don't analyze it deeply, just hold it in your mind. This is the starting point. This is what a day looks like when this check is integrated. You notice a strong reaction within yourself, a desire to refuse, to distance, to switch. At that moment, you don't suppress it and you don't follow it automatically. You ask yourself one question, not what do I feel, but does this feel familiar to me? Or is it truly bad for me? It sounds similar, but these are fundamentally different questions. The first describes the intensity. The second checks the source. Suppose a colleague offers you a project with a clear timeline and understandable tasks. No rush, no chaos of approvals. And you feel a strange reluctance. Not because the conditions are bad, but because they are unfamiliar, too predictable, too quiet for your usual work temperature. This is where you need to pause. You note the reaction and ask yourself, is this a signal of a real problem with the project? Or is it just my nervous system not recognizing this format as real? The same applies in personal matters. A person next to you behaves steadily, creates no tension, does not disappear, and does not return in a loop. And that begins to seem suspicious. At such a moment, it's helpful to catch yourself having a specific thought, I'm bored, or there's no chemistry here, and check. Is this an observation of what's happening right now, or is it an interpretation born from an old pattern? The check doesn't take much time. It requires one honest question asked at the right moment, and the more often you ask it, the quicker you'll notice the difference between what is truly warning you and what simply doesn't match the usual background. The brain does not evaluate what is good for you. It compares the new to what has already been established as the norm. And if the norm has been chaos, stability will seem empty, suspicious, alien. This is not a character flaw. It is the precise function of a system calibrated to old data. The main takeaway from this video is not a list of signs or techniques, but one shift in perspective. The intensity of feeling is information about the past, not a verdict on the present. A strong reaction tells you how deeply something is rooted in your experience. It does not tell you how true it is for you now. And here is the paradox that changes everything. The more accurately you learn to distinguish "this is unfamiliar" from "this is bad," the less often you will avoid what you really need. Not because you will ignore your feelings, but because you will stop confusing them with a final answer. Tomorrow morning, you will definitely have at least one moment when something will seem not yours for no obvious reason. That will be the point. Not to persuade yourself, but to simply ask, is this a real signal or is it just unfamiliar? If this video gave you something specific, subscribe and like so you don't miss the next episode.